Hi friends and subscribers, and oh, where is Starry? She's in bear country. Avoid confrontation. That's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to avoid confrontation, but I'm actually out looking for bear sign because I have my bear tag, and I am hoping to, harvest a bear this year. I don't know if I'm going to get one, but I'm going to bring the dogs out with me, and I've got my mountain bike here, and I'm not going to crash. No concussions on this mountain bike ride. But what I wanted to do is bring you friends along and on my little excursion talk about self-sustainability and some of the top things that if you're really looking at this type of lifestyle, what you should be looking at obtaining and having the ability to do. You know, this is the thing that we have gotten away from in this country, is the ability to create and produce with our hands and using our minds. Everything is like a push of a button. And I love this lifestyle because it really does bring me back to basics. It forces me to think. It forces me to use my hands. Most Americans don't do that anymore. They don't. And it's too bad, because we could be growing our own food. We could be growing our own fruit trees and our berry bushes. And we could be hunting and trapping and fishing for our sources of meat. Besides raising farm animals, there's a lot of things we could be doing. And we could be harvesting the sun for our electricity purposes. It's a whole gamut. So, self-sustainability. Going to explain the difference between off-grid. There's kind of a term thing going on, so I want to explain that first. But as the video goes on, I'm going to touch on some real important elements that you need if you are going to go off and attempt being more self-sustainable and creating that homestead. And the other quick thing too, and this is maybe a little disclaimer, I know there are people that, and they have written me and they said, you know, Starry, I don't have the ability to go off-grid. I don't have the ability or the money financially to buy property, or I get that. I get that. I started from scratch too. Trust me, a lot of hard work, saving money. My husband, very poor. I could tell you stories how poor he was. And, God has blessed us. So I understand. And I do this video mainly for the people who are real serious and who are ready to take the plunge, and they're really looking at those top things for self-sustainability. Everybody else, which is probably a lot of you who don't have the opportunity to do this, there are still pieces of advice that you can take. And just remember, wherever you're at, if you're in an apartment or you are in a urban setting or you live in a small little community, you can make changes. They don't have to be radical changes, but you too can live a more self-sustainable life. You don't have to be off-grid to do it. You don't have to be in the country to do it. Just remember that. Small changes make a big difference. Okay, so let's get going and we'll talk. To stop and chat. Oh, and just so you know, no bears yet. No bears chasing me, or I haven't run into any. No sign either. But I wanted to just, before I get going on this video, just talk about self-sustainability, that term, in off-grid living. I think what has happened is there has been a lot of off-grid talk. What off-grid living is, what off-grid life is about. And I think we get really overwhelmed with the off-grid term, and we kind of throw everything in there. When we think of off-grid, we think about people living in the woods, on the mountains. They're trying to hide from society. They're hoarders. They've got big pantries full of food, and they have cows and chickens and goats and no electricity. Or if they do have electricity, they use very little. Really, there are a lot of misconceptions about what off-grid is. And technically, if we're talking about off-grid, all we're talking about is being disconnected from the big power grid. That's what off-grid means. That's where the term came from. And And I think the rest of the stuff with off-grid just kind of just started rolling and it took off. And so we use off-grid and the off-grid lifestyle in that term a lot lately. And it really is being misused because it's not about the electricity. At least, let me clarify, at least not for people who are living a lifestyle where they want to be more self-sustainable. The grid part is a very small component of this lifestyle, very small. And if you see my videos, you see how often do I talk about the solar panels? How often do I talk about electricity? Not a lot. We look at electricity a little bit differently now that we have a homestead that isn't connected to the power grid. But it's not what defines our homestead. What defines our homestead is being self-sustainable. And that is really a label that needs to be promoted more than this off-grid lifestyle. Because self-sustainability is what is going to be your money in the bank. It's what is going to be your investment for the future. It's yourself in your homestead, and you live independent from those entities that keep us dependent, like the water company, the electric company, the grocery stores. All of that keeps us dependent. And that's why it's not just about being off the grid. It's not about the electricity. It really is about self-sustainability and creating that for us. For us means wood, timber, which we are surrounded by here in the Panhandle. One of the number one priorities is why we chose this place was the ability to be able to harvest our own wood. And when you were looking at self-sustainability on a homestead, you need a source of heat. You need a sustainable source of heat. So propane, not sustainable. We use it on our homestead, not for heat. But there are people who will go start their off-grid homesteads, and they'll get the big old propane tank, which is fine because propane has come down in price. It's accessible. We're not in an SHTF situation right now, so and they use it for their heat. But again, if you think about the purpose of creating a homestead that isn't reliant on anything, the source of heat when you have this in your backyard should not be propane. It just shouldn't be. Nor should it be natural gas or remaining to be hooked up to any of those entities. You want to break free, and you have to start with your source of heat. So you're setting up your homestead. Start looking at the ability to harvest wood and burn wood and use it to keep yourself warm and toasty during the winter time. And the other nice thing about wood too is when propane does run out and we don't have it, you got the good old wood stove like we have with the cooktop in the oven. I cook, I bake. And if you can't afford a wood stove, you can always start a fire outside and make yourself a pit, which we have too. I also do things outside on my outdoor fire pit. I can fry an egg out there. Mr. Hilder can heat up his coffee out there. You can using outdoor wood setup. It's not, it takes a lot of practice, and I wouldn't recommend it right now, but in a scenario where propane is simply not available, wood, look at that. It's available. It's renewable. We're never going to run out.